Hello there, welcome and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. We are going to be talking about the things that you want to do before you leave your home country for studies in Canada. My name is Ingrid and I'll be your presenter for today. If you have any questions after the webinar, please do feel free to submit them and we'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. On today's agenda, we're going to be looking at pre-arrival preparation, travel documents, police clearance, and as well as your medical clearances, fees and course registration, and also traveling with your family. And we have a few additional resources that we're going to just talk to you about that we provide from the International Student Connect project. Before you arrive, there are a few things that you probably should start thinking about the minute you get your admissions letter. So one of the first things that comes to mind is that you should actually accept the school's offer of admission. So you need to contact them and let them know that you do plan on attending the school that has provided you with the opportunity. You must inform your institution if you wish to live on campus or off campus. If you choose campus living, you may need to submit an application for on-campus housing. So that is something that you should actually do as soon as possible to ensure that if there's a space issue, then you would be first in line. Make some arrangements for skills testing. A lot of times, each institution will have its own requirement for English proficiency and sometimes a math test as well. So if you have not already taken an English proficiency test, check with your school to see which test is recommended and what score is required. You should also prepare to make your fee payments and register for your courses as soon as possible. You must register for courses before the beginning of the school term. Check with your school for information about the course registration schedule, the course calendar, or a list of courses, and the procedure for registration. A valid passport is required in order for you to be able to travel back and forth. And so check your travel documents and ensure that your passport is actually valid. If you already have a passport, some people don't yet have one. If you already have a passport, be sure that it has not expired and that it will not expire within the next 6 months of your intended return to your home country. As soon as you have accepted the program at the designated institution, you can apply for a study permit. It can take a while for you to get that study permit, so this is something that you should begin as soon as you get that letter of admission. You must, in order for you to get a passport, you can apply online for the immigration requirements. You can apply online at the Visa Application Center or at a Canadian visa office in your current country. So again, you can apply online at a visa application center for your visa to travel to Canada, or you can apply at a visa office outside of Canada. If you are from a tourist visa exempt country, you may need what is known as an electronic travel authorization, an ETA, to enter into Canada. And the ETA will be automatically processed when you get the study permit. So every new study permit comes with a valid ETA. There's also a letter of introduction that you get from the institution. When your study permit is approved, you will get that letter of introduction. So keep that letter with you at all times because when you land in Canada, the immigration officer may ask you for that letter. So please do keep that in mind. Now, you're probably wondering why we're talking about police clearance and Why would you need police clearance if you are going to be traveling as a student? Well, Canada is pretty much a very safe country, and so we go through several different processes to ensure that we keep the level of safety at its highest. So, police background check is required for anyone who's coming into Canada. And so this is not necessarily just because you're a student coming from a particular country. Any country, anyone who's coming into Canada as a student will be required to complete this police background check. Now, I have a list of different names that is referred to. And just in case in your home country it is called something else. So it may be called a police clearance certificate, a criminal background check, a good conduct certificate, or a judicial record extract. So keep that in mind as you go forth and try to find out this information. Make sure that you visit your doctor. This is actually quite important. You should visit your doctor and ensure that you are in good medical health. So ask about the medical requirements. When you get that authorization, when you get that admissions letter, try to go to the immigration website, so www.canada.ca, EN Immigration Refugee Citizenship Services Application, Medical Police, Medical Exams, Requirements. This is very critical to whether or not you're going to be able to come into Canada and study. So ensure that you get all your immunization records completed. And if, for example, you're a person who has to take medication, if you know you have an illness that requires medicine, you should try to take surplus medication with you to last you for at least 6 months when you after you arrive here in Canada. Also, you should bring along a copy of your medical records in case of an emergency, just in case you ran into a medical issue. It would be nice to have your medical records. That way, when you provide it to the doctors, when you a doctor or a medical professional asks for it, you don't have to contact someone back home and ask them to send you those medical records. Travel arrangements are a big deal for you because you're now leaving your home country and coming to a very strange place to live. If you've never traveled before, we have just a little bit of information for you that could perhaps help you and be a lot less stressful for you once you get into motion. Most international flights to Ontario land at Toronto Pearson International Airport. And we refer to the airport, like, for example, when you go online to book your ticket, you'll notice that it'll say YYZ. YYZ is Toronto Pearson International Airport. That's what that refers to. We also have Ottawa's McDonald Cartier International Airport, and that's referred to as YOW. That's the abbreviation for it. Then we've got regular flights coming in and out of Montreal and Vancouver. Something that you should keep in mind, however, is that many people coming from different countries they wind up taking connecting flights, and those connecting flights will connect through the United States. So if you are one of those people, please do check with your visa offices, your counselors in your country, if you require a visa to travel to the US. Because if you do, even though you are not going to be residing in the United States, you will need to have a visa in order to connect to the other flight that will take you to Canada. You should decide how you'll travel after you land in Canada. So it's oftentimes, if you're coming when you're coming to an institution, some of these institutions will have a bus that will pick you up, so they'll have transportation that will take you to and from the airport. If you're going to one of those institutions that will take you to the airport, that will take you from the airport, my suggestion is that when you book your travel arrangements, or prior to making your travel arrangements, please contact the institution that you're going to be attending and find out, do you have a shuttle there for us? If they don't have a shuttle, then you'll need to make alternative arrangements, whether you're going to be taking an Uber, a regular cab, the bus from there. Um, you know, the airports have different shuttle systems. Figure this out before you land, before you actually purchase your ticket. Start, getting a list together. Take a list and start writing down the things that you need to do, the things that you're going to have to do once you land, what you need to do before you land, before you purchase your ticket. All of those things will help you and will help to make the transition so much smoother if you actually have a checklist where you write these things down and then you can check them off as you go along. Our website provides you with access to a checklist. So please do visit www.internationalstudentconnect.org and you'll find a checklist there that can help you with your planning as well. Let's look at the fees that you are going to need to pay. Your school's calendar will list the deadline for fee and tuition payments. So when is your tuition due? You will find that on your school's website. Or if you can't find it on the website, pick up the phone and contact someone at the institution in the International Student Office. Where will you find information to fees and payments? You'll find that information again on the school's website. And how about, what if you don't pay your fees on time? Well, if you do not pay your fees on time, you run the risk of actually not being able to attend certain courses. So please do make an effort to make the payment for your courses that you are going to be taking as quickly as possible. Do not allow the deadline to pass and you have not yet done so. What about course registration? When should you register for courses is some of the questions that we've been asked by students who are coming to Canada. Where can I find information on course registration? How will I complete my course registration? Are some courses more important than others? Well, let's answer that question for you. All of those questions, in fact, we will answer for you. You must register for your courses before the beginning of the school term. Check with your school for information about the course registration schedule, the course calendar, or a list of courses, and the procedure for registration. Most of this information will be found on your school's website, so that's where you'll get most of the information. Be sure you understand which courses are required and register for those courses first. So you do have compulsory courses, so courses that you must absolutely take. These courses, please ensure that you go online, you look them up, and you pay for those ones first. Note that you should take any necessary assessment tests before course registration to ensure that you register for the correct courses. Okay, so any assessments that are required, do not delay. Do those as quickly as possible. Your timetable review. Why do you need to check your timetable? Well, checking your timetable is actually critical. Once your registration is complete and confirmed, you should definitely be checking your timetable to ensure that you have the correct courses and that there are no scheduling overlaps. So when we talk about scheduling overlaps, we're looking at the possibility of, let's say, for example, you scheduled one course and then there was a compulsory course that you absolutely needed to take, but because you've scheduled one that you was, let's say, an elective as opposed to a compulsory course, you've now overlapped. Not a good scenario, okay? Because you would have already paid. So please do take a look at your timetable. Make sure that there are no scheduling issues. You will be able to change your schedule by adding or withdrawing from a course or courses. However, keep in mind that there are specific restrictions and deadlines for making schedule changes. So if, for example, you registered for a particular course and you felt that you no longer wanted to take this course, you can drop it, but you must drop it within a certain time frame, because if you drop your courses after that deadline has passed, then you would have lost the money for it, and you also probably will lose the opportunity to take another course that will replace that credit. How can you find information about withdrawing? Go to your school's website. There will be a lot of information there for you. If you miss, remember this, if you miss the drop deadline, you will be asked to pay for the course, even though you didn't take it. So please do not forget to do that. When you get your schedule and your timetable, you take a look at it. And if you feel that, you know what, I don't want to do business math this semester, but I can do it next semester. Or you felt, my course load is really heavy. I'm doing 7 courses right now, and I feel like this is going to be a little bit too much for me. And you want to cut those down and push them into the next semester. Please check the deadline date and ensure that you do it on or before the due date. Housing is another critical piece. Okay, come on, think about it. You're no longer at home. You no longer go and stay with your parents. You probably don't have family here in Canada. And if you don't have family here in Canada, then you are possibly going to require housing. Well, I shouldn't say possibly. You are going to require housing if you don't already have family here. So there are two types of, you've got two options. You've got on-campus housing and you also have off-campus housing. Now, on campus is possibly you will live close to the residence or on the actual campus. So your residence will be close to campus, or you may find accommodation on campus, depending on which institution you are attending. Dormitories with cafeteria or apartment style is generally what you'll find. So you'll find like a dorm room, excuse me, where you've got, let's say, 2 people to 1 room or 3 people bunking in a room. And then there's a cafeteria close by, or you may have apartment style residences where you've got your own unit. So you've got perhaps something kind of like what we call a bachelor's. So you've got a bedroom and your washroom and a small kitchenette contained within your apartment. Off-campus residences are generally private student residences. They may not necessarily be right next to the institution. They may be a little bit of a distance away. Perhaps it's a basement apartment that you've rented. If you are renting a basement apartment, this is not the housing webinar, but I just want to touch on this very briefly. If you're renting a basement apartment or any apartment for that matter, when you get here, please do ensure that you check with, the regulatory body or check with the landlord to ensure that the place you're renting is actually up to the right safety standard, has the right building codes. It's got a fire alarm detector. It also has a carbon monoxide detector. Things like those, you really need to ensure that you're on top of that, because no one is going to do that for you. And you have to make sure that you are pretty safe where you choose to live. Canada is a very safe country, like I said, Ontario is, but please do focus and ensure that you're in a really good place. Homestays, when we talk about homestays, there is a program where specific homeowners will get permission to kind of join this program, and students are placed in their homes through the homestay program. So these households are vetted. The owners have gone through a police background check. They've gone through specific questioning and things like that. So you know that wherever you're going to stay, if you're choosing to do it through the homestay program, you are going to be safe because these people have already been vetted. They may have been doing this for years. And so it's not something that you would have to worry about your safety. You can also rent a house. Many students do that. They rent a house together. So you've got 4, 5, or 6 people that will come together and they'll rent one house, and everybody will share that house, and you'll each pay a portion of the rent and the utilities. How about if you're traveling with family? Well, it may come as a surprise to some of you if you are not already married or if you're not traveling with family. But there are quite a bit of international students who arrive in Canada with their family members. Now, this is something that is a very unique part of the studying process here in Canada. The fact that you could also take your family members with you. Will your family require travel visas? Well, that depends. If you have a valid study permit, you can bring your spouse and your children with you to Ontario for your study period. You know, I mean, if you take your family with you, there are those of us like, I mean, there are those of you like me probably who would probably be running away from home and saying, yes, I've got freedom. My parents are no longer going to be there, and I just want to go. I don't want to take any family members with me. But then there are those people who are actually married, have their children, and would like their spouse and their kids to come along with them. So if you have a valid study permit, you can absolutely take your family with you. Your spouse and children will require valid travel documents, but they do not need to apply for separate visas. So what that is basically telling you is that your visa will take care of everybody in the family. Your family members may need to obtain medical exams and provide police certificates or police background checks, like we talked about earlier. And that is, if that is requested by the visa officer, then you would absolutely have to make sure that your family have all of those pieces of documents in ready to go. If they want to work, so if you've got children who are school age children, but they are over the age of 16, where you can work in Canada, then and they want to work, they would have to obtain a work permit to do so. You can't just work because you have a visa. You would need to apply for the work permit. Some study permits comes along with a work permit as well. So when you get your study permit, check that out to make sure, or to just figure out, what kind of study permit you have. Your children may attend public school without a study permit of their own. And when the children of, international students reach the age of 18, they would have to absolutely apply for a study permit to continue education. So if the children are under the age of 18, then they don't need to apply for a study permit. But if they are over the age of 18, they need to apply for their own study permit. How about early accommodation? Early accommodation um, is part of, you know, whether you're planning, let's say you're planning to come to Canada for school. Are you going to come a day before school, or are you going to come 2 weeks before the school term starts? Well, the campuses, if you're going to be living on campus, they do have very strict move-in dates. And so if that's your plan, you need to connect with them. Temporary accommodations may be required, and they may they may find a place for you if they don't have space, or you may need to go to an Airbnb or somewhere that you can stay temporarily, maybe perhaps a hotel, a hostel, any one of those places. Um, the postgraduate insurance. We're talking about this because your actual student insurance does not become effective until the school term begins. Okay. Now, If you're coming for a couple of weeks prior to school starting, you may need postgraduate insurance. So that's, you may need insurance, private insurance for yourself and your children if you're coming with your children. So please do get some additional information on that. Now, what are some of the things that you need to do to prepare for departure? Let's look at baggage and how baggage is handled and the weight and all of that. You should pack very smart. So every airline has a limit. So the weight that you can take on the flight, each airline has its own policy surrounding that. So make sure that you go on their website when you're going to book your ticket, go to the website and check what the weight is that you're going to need. Now, this is to help you pack effectively. I know many of us want to take everything we can with us. And if you've got family here, you want to take gifts with you for your family. But think about the fact that you are going to be staying in Canada for a really long time. And so you do need to ensure that you have all the personal items that you personally need. Casual clothing is a must. And you should have at least one formal suit or something that is semi-formal or formal, especially if you're going to be looking for work and you need to have an attire for your interviews. Now, for those of you who have traditional cultural clothing, don't ignore those. Canada is a very multicultural society, and especially Ontario, you're going to find that you will find many, many cultural festivals around, and people get dressed up in their cultural wear all the time. So, this is something that you should keep in mind. Bed linen and towels, you should absolutely have. If they are in some countries, they tend to be cheaper. If they're cheaper in your home country and you can afford to get them prior to coming here, please do so, but always have in the back of your mind that you will be charged for the extra weight. And if you've gone over the limit that you're allowed to carry. And some airlines will also just not take your bags. So think about that. Don't forget to take personal items from home. Just a quick checklist. Your electronic devices, such as your laptop and your smartphones, don't forget those. And remember that your traditional clothing is always important. Can't stress that enough that you should take those with you if you are one of those people from a country that's got their own traditional clothing. Here is a checklist that we put together for departure and some of the things that you should think about. It's kind of like the summary of the webinar. So if you're going to live on campus or off campus, apply for on-campus housing. That's the first thing that you should do. If you're not going to remain on campus, find off-campus housing prior to landing. Don't wait until you land in Canada, then you do it. And the reason I say that is because if you wait until you land in Canada, then you're going to need to pay for part-time accommodation, which I think perhaps it could cost you a pretty penny to do so. Book early arrival accommodations, arrange health insurance. UHIP and college plans are available. Check those out. Ask your institution what they offer. And then there's early arrival insurance. We talked about that earlier. Think about how long you're going to be in this country without insurance and take a look at supplemental insurance. There are some documents that you are going to require once you arrive at the customs. So letters of introduction for study permit and acceptance, keep those. Do not say, well, I got accepted and I'm going to leave this at home. I want my letter to stay at home because I want it when I come back. Protect it when you get here, but please do take it with you. Proof of financial resources and other documents are also required oftentimes. Driver's licenses and insurance records, proof of vaccinations, reference letters from previous employers. That'd be great for you to take with you, especially if you're coming to find a job after you arrive here. Marriage certificates if you're being accompanied by your spouse, birth certificates and proof of immunization, and school records if you're going to be taking your children that are of school age with you. Baggage allowance and weight restrictions should always be checked. Can't hammer that home enough. Security restrictions for international students. Think about what are the security restrictions, find that out, and make sure that you are within those parameters. Customs restrictions for Canada and transit countries. So find out all of that information. Go to www.cic.gc.ca where you'll find a wealth of information on these topics. Now, International Student Connect project is brought to you by the Ontario government. The government funds this project, and then Costi Immigrant Services, who's a community-based multicultural agency, serves over 39,000 clients annually from 17 different locations across the Greater Toronto area. We are the coordinators of this project. And so what we do is we work collectively and collaboratively with various institutions, colleges, and universities to bring this program to you so that you will have the opportunity to transition to an international, from an international student to a permanent Canadian resident, if that is your choice. I spoke earlier about our website. It is at www.internationalstudentconnect.org. We do have a transition plan that we have created that has been designed to help you with your planning. So if you're especially planning on making Canada your home after graduation, the transition plan will be a perfect tool to help you with that, because I'm not sure if you're already privy to the information, if you've already done some research and figured out, what do I need to do to become a permanent resident after I get there? Well, you can apply for permanent residence after you arrive here and complete your program of study. You're absolutely able to do that. Please ensure that you follow the steps leading up to graduation. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a situation where you needed to put a number of things in place and you didn't put those things in place, and because of that, you're no longer eligible for the postgraduate work permit that would have helped you with your application for permanent residence. Check out the transition plan. If you need to contact us, please do not hesitate to give us a call at 1-844-871-4567, or you may email us at isc@costi.org. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for our webinar. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to either send us an email, or you may do so at the end of the webinar that you have just viewed. Thank you once again, and I hope to see you in other webinars that we have.